Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Damon Martin.
And I'm Patrick Guerra.
And Patrick, tonight we are going to be talking about one of the buzzier, more anticipated horror films of the year because we did a review for Evil Dead Rise a couple years ago, 2023, and it was incredible. It was in my top 5 of the year. I don't remember if it ended in your top 5. I think it did.
Definitely.
And by the way, Lee Cronin, to his credit, he had done one other movie before Evil Dead Rise, which is what got him the Evil Dead Rise job. But then after that, he got, you could argue, another big franchise film with The Mummy because it's Universal Monsters and it's being produced by Blumhouse and Atomic Monster. But tonight, Patrick, we are diving into, to get the actual title correct, Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
Yes, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, starring a bevy of people, Damon. So buckle up here. Emily Mitchell plays young Katie Cannon. May Elodie plays Layla Khalil. Hyatt Camille plays the magician. Veronica Falcone plays Carmen Santiago. Billy Roy plays Maud Cannon. Shiloh Molina plays Sebastian Cannon. Natalie Grace plays Katie Cannon. May Kalamawi plays Detective Dahlia Zaki. Laya Costa plays Larissa Cannon, and Jack Rayner stars as Charlie Cannon. As you mentioned, Damon, written and directed by Lee Cronin himself. The young daughter of a journalist disappears into the desert without a trace. 8 years later, the broken family is shocked when she is returned to them, as what should be a joyful reunion turns into a living nightmare. Lee Cronin's The Mummy, Damon. Once again, the family ain't all right. Shit has happened. I didn't realize. So this is officially, we're calling this Universal's Mummy Monster movie.
I mean,
Are we doing that?
That's what that's what they're posing it as. Universal produced a movie, and I mean, I guess, I mean, and the problem, here's the problem. Here's where it starts with this movie. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying the movie's terrible. I'm saying here's where the problem starts with when you do these kind of movies. Did you notice in the marketing they kept doing the funny thing where they're like, Brendan Fraser is not in Lee Cronin's The Mummy? They were kind of rolling with it because I guess at some point somebody mentioned to Lee Cronin, like, Brendan Fraser, and he's like, he's not in this movie. And like,
yeah,
because they're just, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing this is why his name is in front of the title.
Yes.
Because in a matter of really bad timing, they announced this movie and it's coming out in 2026, and they just announced they're redoing The Mummy. Well, not redoing, they're doing a new sequel with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, and all those characters are back, John Hannah. And this is totally off topic, Patrick, but are you a fan of the original, like the 1999 Mummy, the Brendan Fraser Mummy?
Absolutely. The 99 and the follow-up were big ones for me. And then I made a mistake and saw the Scorpion King, and I was like, whoops, we shouldn't have done that. But yeah, no, those first two movies, absolutely. They were big. Richard Summers, I think, was the director. I can't remember his name exactly, but or Steven Summers.
Steven Summers. Yeah, Steven Summers. Thank you.
Yeah. So like those were those big blockbuster movies. I mean, those were just fun to go to. Like you just showed up to those big badass movies. And I was like, when I follow Lee Cronin on Twitter. Nice guy too. You know, like I've sat on a couple of panels that he's been on, and he's just kind of an enthusiastic and joyful and jovial guy who shares a lot of the process, which I really appreciate. I love directors who will walk you through everything they're doing because it's educational for a filmmaker like myself. So I'm a fan of Lee Cronin, the guy. And when I remember on his Twitter, he plopped down one day the title of the script. It said Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and I went, oh. Okay, he's doing The Mummy, and immediately my mind went to the Brendan Fraser ones, and it's like, no, it's a totally original thing. It's a totally different take. But I hadn't heard until your intro, and if people don't hear it, Damon mentioned that this is part of the Universal Monsterverse. You know, that the Universal owns the rights to The Mummy, to Dracula, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein. They own those things. So you know, if you're going to be playing in that pool, you got to pay Universal. Universal has to be a part of that. So it's pretty interesting that this is their new Mummy movie, because we did get Wolfman, Lee Winnell's Wolfman, another Lee, and that not that great, Damon. I'm going to be really honest with you. That didn't go over so well. But Lee Cronin's The Mummy, it had this momentum that seemed like it couldn't be stopped, and that's dangerous. It creates expectations. I really liked Evil Dead Rise. I avoided the trailers like the plague. I knew the basic premise because I'd sit in a theater and I'd hear that trailer going, and I got my head down. I'm kind of like looking at my phone, just trying not be involved in it. But I knew as much that these people, their daughter goes missing, and they find her in a sarcophagus a few years later, and I'm like, okay, that's more than I even wanted to know. But gotcha, I get it. And just people were like, "What's this all about?" Now, interestingly enough, Evil Dead Rise was sort of what I would say is divisive. I think some people loved it, some people hated it because the Evil Dead franchise is so important to so many horror fans. You and I loved it. You and I thought it was great, and some people were just like, "This is not my Evil Dead. I don't like it. Too serious, too sad, too hardcore. It wasn't funny." And I'm like, "But did you not see Fede Alvarez's movie? Because holy shit, is that dreary and dark and hardcore?" But that was very like to the bone a Evil Dead movie, whereas Evil Dead Rise was something different. It was about a family trapped in a situation. Lee Cronin's right back at it here with The Mummy, Damon. This is a family trapped in a situation. And since I didn't see trailers or anything, I was just like, well, what is this all going to shake out to be? And it does indeed become something not unlike Evil Dead Rise, a family trapped in a dire situation, and things get, well, let's just spell it out here, Damon, bloody and crazy.
Well, the one thing I will say, and it's weird that, talk about the Universal thing, like, this is their second stab at the Mummy because they also did that Mummy with Tom Cruise. And
Yes.
if you want to talk about getting sucked into a bad idea, HBO or one of the streaming services has been showing the 1999 Mummy, the Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz Mummy, which is incredible. I adore that film, and The Mummy Returns. You're absolutely right. Scorpion King, Dear God, and then, whatever else. But The Mummy and The Mummy Returns are great. I love those movies.
Yeah,
but they've
fun.
also been showing The Mummy starring Tom Cruise, which is awful. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it's so
I have
bad.
seen it. And
So
I
bad.
love Tom Cruise movies, Damon. That's like the one Tom Cruise movie in the last 25 years where I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, it's real bad. But I've gotten I'll be scrolling like late at night and I'm like, oh, Mummy. And I'll click on like, no, not this one. Like, because it's just the Mummy. So I don't like, it's weird that there's just like this weird obsession with redoing this over and over and over again. When you mentioned all the Universal monsters, like there's also the Creature from the Black Lagoon. They have not redone
Right.
that. And obviously we know Frankenstein's been, done and redone. We just had, the great version by Guillermo del Toro last year. And I think the best of the best has been The Invisible Man, which we reviewed back in the day. That was the start of the pandemic, or that was the last theater movie I saw before the pandemic started. And Invisible Man was awesome. Like, what an incredibly unique and really creative way into that universe. And that was like when I talked about my problems like Nosferatu, which is clearly a Dracula knockoff. My problem was like you're just telling me the same story over again. And I think one of my biggest issues, I don't have an issue they redid The Mummy again, and I give Lee Cronin a lot of credit for becoming like a different way in, a different like tactic. It's not like the way this is not a spoiler, so I don't want you to like feel like this. I'm ruining the movie for you, but like this is not like world stakes. This isn't like even like the 1999 Mummy where they're like, oh, he's going to unleash the plagues on Egypt and the world, and he's going to take
Right.
over. And even the Tom Cruise movie kind of felt like that, global
Yes.
stakes. This movie's not global stakes. This is a family. It's like a family living in New Mexico, and weird, creepy, ooky shit happens to them. And I appreciated that tactic of going smaller versus bigger because it feels like every Mummy movie is, the world's going to end. It's apocalyptic. But I like
Yeah, that's next
I
year's
get-
Mummy.
I get that they are important IP for Universal, but unless you have a Lee Wanell Invisible Man take, I really don't need more of these, man. I really don't, because the Wolfman was just really disappointing. Like, it was just a
Also
really
Lee Wanell.
disappointing film. Yeah, it was like, boy, did you go the other direction with this one? And I will say, largely, I enjoyed The Mummy. I do have some issues. I definitely have some issues with the time. This movie's like 2 hours and 13 minutes, which is way too long.
Way
But-
too long.
But I did appreciate that Lee Wanell, you got me in Lee Wanell, that Lee Cronin tackled this story in a different way and made it smaller. Beyond anything else, I appreciated that that's the tactic he took. It wasn't, we've unleashed the mummy, and now the mummy's going to take over the world, or the apocalypse is coming. It feels like every mummy movie is kind of like that.
Right.
And this one is really contained to a family, and just a several, 5 or 6 characters. So I appreciated that he kind of drilled it down to that, and it wasn't like every other mummy movie. And so while I have issues with this film, and a lot of things I did like about it as well, I appreciated that Lee Cronin took a slightly different approach to his mummy.
I do appreciate that it's a different approach that is a little more contained. But also, this is a big step up even from Evil Dead Rise, which was not a small movie, it was just, but it was still kind of contained. This one sprawls a little bit more, and this is kind of maybe the biggest we've seen Lee Cronin do a movie. It feels like a big studio movie. And I was a little like jealous. I was like, man, Lee Cronin gets to play in these beautiful worlds, like great set design, really, really beautiful set design, a couple of great key locations, a great production design, like some of the imagery with the mummies, the sarcophagus. There's like a couple of pyramid things, the home where most of it takes place in, very beautifully done. Feels like a studio movie. And I'm like, damn, that's kind of cool. Like that Lee gets to do that. But it also spread itself out a little bit in terms of, I guess, the footprint of the story is a little bit bigger. It's not huge, but it's bigger than Evil Dead Rise. I'll put it that way. It's got kind of a bigger scale than Evil Dead Rise. And in my opinion, the story of Lee Cronin's The Mummy kind of gets in the way of itself. For me personally, I find the story to be a little laborious. He's juggling a couple of storylines, and I think some people get lost in the mix. And obviously, I'm kind of dancing around things because I don't want to get into spoilers yet. But I think if you've seen the trailer, you get the gist of what the movie is, and I think it delivers on what the trailer shows you, very much so. But I can appreciate that I was like, well, this is a different way to look at the mummy curse. Because how do you look at the mummy curse? We've been doing it literally since the early days of cinema. We've been wrapping a skeleton in toilet paper and having him, reach out like a zombie and crawl after people. How do we get into it differently? I will give him credit. Lee Cronin got into this differently. There's sort of an investigative aspect to this movie. The father, Jack Rayner, who you may know, he plays Charlie in this movie, but everybody knows Jack Rayner as your favorite shitty boyfriend from Midsommar. He's that same actor, great actor, by the way. He plays this investigative father who, when he gets his daughter back, is like, I'm going to figure out what the fuck is going on, why she went missing for 8 years. This is absolute horseshit. And of course, what he uncovers is something that he never thought he was going to find. And that part of the movie to me is interesting because you sometimes, I think sometimes we forget the whole point of the mummy mythology is the curse. The whole lore is what shall the curse wrought upon those who dare cross it. And they get into that in this movie. You will get that aspect in this movie without giving away anything. You understand just how the curse works. In my opinion, though, Damon, it just takes way too long to get there.
Let me give you a positive and a negative about this movie, and I'll start with my negative, and I think you're going to agree with me here. And this is not me doing Rewrite of Living Dead, although I guess technically I kind of am. And by the way, this is not a spoiler. You watch the trailer, you know this. Like, they literally tell you that, like, the dad is an investigative journalist who is working in Egypt when his daughter goes missing. Then 8 years later, they're back at home in America to get a call. Hey, we found her, and they bring her home. I think this movie would have worked better if it just all happened in Egypt.
Agree.
He stays there. That's where he works, and that's where he's going to live. And that way, because there's lots, like, it kind of goes back and forth. Like, the story keeps bouncing back and forth between America and Egypt. I'm like, wouldn't it have just been easier for them to stay in Egypt and just have it all take place there? Because, they tell you right up front, like, he's an American journalist living in Egypt. Okay, that's fine. And his daughter goes missing. Why not just stay? Like, wouldn't you be, like, obsessed with, like, finding answers? Like, why would you want to?
I'm not leaving. Yeah, as a parent, I'm not leaving until I get answers about where my kid is.
So I think that would have been one easy fix when you're talking about the laborious nature of the story. And I agree. It's a 2 hour and 13-minute movie that should have been an hour and 40 minutes. And I think a lot of that's because they're going back and forth. Like there's like what's going on in
Yeah.
America, what's going on in Egypt. And I think it would have worked better if it just all happened in Egypt. You know what I mean? Like then you got, the parents coming to terms with their daughter being found and what's actually happening with her, and then you've got the investigation of what actually happened to her. All have it self-contained in that one country. Did not need to spread out. So that's the negative. When it comes to the positive, though, I think the one approach that Lee Cronin did right, when you think about, 1999's Mummy, you think about Tom Cruise's shitty mummy movie, whatever. Like generally speaking, you're dealing with adult, creepy, scary mummies. Arnold Vosloo is a great actor, by the way. Like he played the mummy in the 1999 and Mummy Returns. I like him very much as an actor. I was like, great character. But you're always rooting against him. Like he's a bad guy. He's a villain.
Yeah.
Lee Cronin adds a little layer here by making it a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's always like, I don't have kids, so I don't have the same emotional resonance that maybe you would as a father. But even I, like when I see a little kid, I'm like, man, that's hard, right? Like, because it's a kid, like it's a child. And I like, they did a really good job of that show you and I absolutely adore. The first season of True Detective, it's about kids, largely.
Yeah.
And that hits you emotionally in a different way. Like I think you put kids or animals, put kids or animals in peril. There's going to be like, it's an easier emotional trigger because nobody really wants to see a child get hurt. No one wants to see an animal get hurt. And you're placing the villain as a child. So it's a little like harder to just be, I'll just kill it or whatever. It's a child. So I think that was a good idea because I had never seen anything done like that before. You know what I mean? Like they weren't saying like, oh, this is a ancient 5,000-year-old mummy or 10,000, whatever number they want to give it. And he's come alive and he's come back to avenge the world. That's, even the 1999 mummy, that's what it is basically. I mean, yeah, in his case, he was trying to, bring back his formerly dead woman, but he's still trying to take over the world. By putting it in a child, I think they raised the emotional stakes a little bit because no one wants to see harm done to a child. So I did appreciate that. But yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of like stretching the story too much, that it should have just all been in one location. If you do it all in Egypt. And by the way, like I think that would have cut down the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
having to reestablish them, they go back to New Mexico. I'm sorry, I'm kind of slightly getting into spoilers here, but yeah, the fact that they reestablish themselves, it's like, and I have a feeling that somewhere down the line they were like, well, guys, we can't afford to just shoot the whole thing in Egypt. I mean, I think they have some exteriors that are definitely in Egypt, and they look great. In Cairo probably, but also I'm going like, yeah, I understand that you need to shoot in New Mexico for tax purposes. I get that. You can double, it takes place, I'll spoil this much. It contains itself in New Mexico in one house. That house can be in Cairo. I've watched movies where they said we're in Los Angeles and I'm looking around, I'm like, that's fucking New Orleans and you know it. Like, but they say we're in Los Angeles. So if it takes place in this house,
or Toronto, usually is Toronto.
Yeah, or Toronto for New York. I've seen Michigan, I've seen Detroit for New York, I've seen all of it because I've been to all these places, so I know what they're doubling. And I go, okay, for tax purposes and budget, you had to shoot in New Mexico. Still just call it Egypt. And instead of making the wife, Larissa, instead of making her Spanish, because my mom is from Albuquerque, it's a big Spanish population, not Mexican, Spanish. And so her and her mom and all these people are Spanish. I go, change them to Egyptian. So there's a reason for everyone to be in one place. And just call New Mexico, this one house in New Mexico, call it Cairo, or call it some other part of Egypt, and Bob's your uncle. Like, let's just move on. But for whatever reason, they had to have this literal continental rift between the two storylines, and that just bogs the shit out of it.
And the principal photography of this movie, by the way, took place in Ireland and Spain.
Sure.
So I'm assuming Spain was doubling as Egypt. Why not just shoot it all there?
Spain was doubling as Egypt and New Mexico for some reason.
Yeah,
or put them in Spain, which is even closer to Egypt, ridiculously close to Egypt.
And that to me is the biggest hindrance of this film, is like going back and forth. And I get it. Like, I like the element of like, you brought your daughter home, but we want to know what happened to our daughter. Like, she was missing for 8 years, and she just suddenly pops up in this a sarcophagus? Like, what is going on? And I understand, like, her father, played by Jack Rayner, who played the worst boyfriend ever in the Midsommar, who is actually a really good actor.
Yeah.
Like, he's an investigative journalist. I'm an investigative journalist. That's what I do for a living. So, like, his curiosity would be me. I totally understand that. Like, he's like, and the mother, she's just like, I'm glad my daughter's home. But he's like, but what happened to her? And that, triggering his brain like it would be in my brain would be like, I need to know. Like, I need to know what happened. Like, yes, of course I'm having my daughter's back, but I want to know what happened to her during that 8-year span she was missing. And so he starts investigating. Just make it all in Egypt, because like they got the other major character in the movie beyond the kids and everything is a Egyptian police detective,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going over the phone. I'm like, why aren't you just like knocking on the door and helping her out? Like, why are we going back? I agree. Like, that was probably the biggest issue with this movie is like we had two stories happening on other sides of the world. Why?
Yeah.
Like, why are we doing this? But the narrowing the story down and condensing it to where it's just a daughter being returned home to her family, her younger brother who is alive when she got kidnapped, and then at the time her mom was pregnant, and so she has a baby sister she had never met, clearly, because she got kidnapped, she went missing, and so we're dealing with 3 kids, 2 parents, and a grandmother in the house. And that is 98% of the movie. Oh, not of the movie, but like when you're in New Mexico, you're dealing with 98% in that house, and you're dealing with the one child who has something really messed up with them. I did appreciate that he condensed it down to that, and in a lot of ways, like you're almost like, hey, I just followed the Evil Dead Rise, because that all took place in an apartment building, and basically one apartment in the apartment building. But I appreciated that because like I was just like, oh, please don't turn this into another like global. The mummy escapes the tomb, and here we go again.
Or just skydiving out of a C7.
Yeah, to their credit. So I really did appreciate the smaller nature of this film, the condensed nature of what Lee Cronin decided to do with his version of the mummy.
My positive for the movie will be that this is a bloody, gory, like hardcore when it's time to get hardcore kind of movie. In many ways, it kind of, in my opinion, steps it up a little bit from Evil Dead Rise. There's, I think there's trade-offs because you're dealing with deadites, and in this movie you're not. Although, just hold on for spoilers, because my second issue with the movie is more of a spoiler thing. I'll get into that. I'll get into like this very specifics of it in spoilers. There was a lack of urgency, in my opinion, in this movie. A detrimental, fatal lack of urgency in this movie, and we'll get into that when we get into spoilers. And I don't know when you're ready to do that or not, Damon. If you're feeling like spoilers, what do you think?
I think it's time. So yeah, Lee Cronin's The Mummy is in theaters right now. I think overall, I really enjoyed this one. I know you didn't particularly enjoy this one, so if we're going to be split for the non-spoiler crowd, I did enjoy it. Overall, I did enjoy it. I do have issues. Length of the movie's a big one, but overall I did enjoy it.
There's one more thing I want to say before we get to spoilers, and this is very special and near and dear to my heart, Damon. I love having this mic and this captive audience to be able to say things like this. This is a proud Papa moment. Affection, the new horror film starring Jessica Roth, is going to be released May 8th in theaters. I don't know the exact extent. I don't know if it's a full wide release, but it is directed by one of my very dear and closest friends that I've known for almost 25 years at this point, if you can believe it, BT Meza. It's his directorial debut. It stars Jessica Roth, and it is coming to theaters very soon. I want you to mark your calendars. I want you to take a look at your local theater listings, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be for sure in major cities. Major cities will probably have Affection. I don't know how many yet. I haven't gotten information on that yet. But as a very proud friend, for my friend to make his feature length debut, please do keep an eye out for Affection because it's coming to theaters May 8th.
There you go. And also, if you want extra access to this show, early access to episodes, bonus episodes, all kinds of cool stuff, check out patreon.com/rewind of the living dead. We are recording this on a Thursday night. I will put it up on Patreon within an hour of recording this. So if you want to get early access to our episodes, check out Patreon. If you want access to our other reviews, we do a Film Core podcast where we review non-horror film movies. We've done Superman, we've done The Smashing Machine, we've done Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair, we've done Heat.
Just did Project Hail Mary. We just did.
Just did.
I can even announce what our next one is because the votes are in.
Go ahead.
Our next Film Core podcast, as voted by the patrons, will be Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And what a perfect time to do it because it's 25-year anniversary. It's an exciting time. Both Damon and I, big Kevin Smith guys. This is very formative stuff for us. So if you want to listen to podcasts like that and you get to vote on it, and our voters did, and they're turning out in big droves now. We're getting lots of votes, way more than we used to. You go to patreon.com/rewind of the living dead. $5 a month. It helps your boys out tremendously. Thank you so much.
And hey, baby, you ever had your asshole licked by a fat man in an overcoat? Get ready for a lot of that with that.
Get ready for quite a few best lines in those categories, but you can only get it on Patreon. That's a Patreon exclusive.
Absolutely. Patreon.com/rewind of the living dead. Also, now we're going to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Lee Cronin's The Mummy, be forewarned, we are now going into full spoilers. And I don't want to talk about the ending yet because I have a big beef with it.
Not yet.
We're going to get there. So overall, just kind of give you a lay of the land of the plot. Long story short, and really the early premise is pretty much exactly what the movie is. Like a journalist and his family living in Egypt. His young daughter Katie goes missing one day, and they can't find her. And they obviously return home to New Mexico, where his wife's mother lives. They're living with her, and Katie's gone missing for 8 years. They get a call one day from the embassy. There was a plane crash in the middle of Egypt, and they found a 3,000-year-old sarcophagus, and inside they found, wrapped in bandages, Katie alive still somehow, and they have no idea how, but they go and retrieve her and they bring her home. But Katie is clearly not right. Like she's clearly messed up and got, gnarled hands, and her skin's all deformed, and she looks like she's been living in a sarcophagus for 8 years without anything else going on. And they bring her home, and of course, all kinds of weird shit starts happening because there's something wrong with Katie. Like, this is not their daughter, not the daughter they left behind 8 years ago. And over time, as I mentioned earlier, the father starts doing an investigation. He wants to know what happened to his daughter. And when they find bandages, and he knows there's like hieroglyphics on the bandages, and he started doing an investigation. Long story short, they come to find out that she has been possessed, I guess, for lack of a better word, by an ancient Egyptian demon called the Nosmarian. And the Nosmarian is a creature that destroys families. It basically turns families into, crushes, destroys, kills families. And did it for centuries, but then somehow, 3,000 years ago, whatever the timeline was, they found a way to trap it. But you have to trap it in a human body, and that human body has to be mummified, and then eventually, when that person dies or whatever, like in real life, they have to transfer the Nosmarian to another person. So it's this one family who has been tasked with continuously trapping the Nosmarian in more bodies, so it never escapes and never creates more havoc in the world. But as we learn in the story, young people are better suited because they last longer, they live longer. So you can put a child, and you got maybe 90 years where you can trap the Nosmarian before you have to put it in another body. Whereas if you do it for a full-grown adult, you might get 30 or 40 years. So they this family kidnaps Katie and uses her as the conduit for this Nosmarian. And obviously the father's doing some investigation into this, but the mother, very much living with her head in the sand, is like, this is my daughter. I'm going to take care of her. F you if you don't believe I can do it. I'm doing it. Screw you. My daughter's not going anywhere. I love my daughter. But over time, Katie starts doing some pretty heinous shit. And that's really the bulk of the story is that. And then the other half, which is why I said it should just all been in Egypt, is the one detective who worked with them. She was a young cop trying to get into the missing persons unit, and she helped because she could speak English. She helped with the initial investigation. Clearly, they never found Katie. And then all these years later, when she actually was found, now she actually is like one of the lead detectives for the missing persons unit. And she's equally curious. Like, what actually happened here? How did this happen? How did your daughter end up in a sarcophagus? Why was it in a plane? How did it crash? Like, there's just so many questions. So she's basically conducting her own investigation in Egypt while the family is dealing with all kinds of crazy, weird shit back in New Mexico, while the father is still doing his own investigation, which would have been 100 times easier if they were all just in fucking Egypt. Okay, that's where I'll stop.
I could really appreciate Lee Cronin's way into the curse. He says, like, why the curse? Okay, so we always talk about the mummy's curse, the mummy's curse. So what he says is there is a deity or whatever this thing is, this demon, whatever it is, and the way to trap it is to mummify somebody, put them in a sarcophagus, and never let them out, right? Until it's time to transfer them to another body. Um, I appreciate that because that to me it was like, oh, there's actual purposefulness to this curse. It takes a really long time to get to that Damon in this movie, and in my opinion, I would have done it at about the halfway point. I would have actually done it right about there because my big problem with this movie is that Katie comes home and clearly Katie's not right. And they make that very clear. Like she's been locked away in the darkness for whoever knows how long. Her skin is like waxy now and she's catatonic essentially. And so they're just kind of caring for her, but she has odd behavior. All of this on the surface kind of makes sense. Why? Like she'll lash out in moments or whatever, but they don't really understand why. And it isn't until mom is trying to groom her and she thinks what she thinks she's done is she thinks she's flayed an entire piece of skin off of her. And it's actually part of that sacred wrap that they have to wrap the person in to enclose the demon into them. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And Katie kind of here and there will act out in weird little ways. She bites the grandma, headbutts the grandma, she throws up, she eats bugs. And you're like, okay, cool. How is this escalating the story? This is my problem with this movie. Is that for a great long time, and I would say the good middle chunk of this movie, which is what you would call fun and games. Shout out to the Writers Blockbusters podcast for first teaching me that idea that just the middle of your movie is the fun and games, where all the crazy shit happens, kind of keeps you in on everything. That's all well and good if the fun and games are affecting something that requires urgency. This can be an investigative movie, and it certainly was. This can be a thriller. This can be a mystery. All those things can work. But I need something to push against that. And to me, what was happening was she'd do something creepy, and it escalated nothing. It didn't put a fire under Charlie's ass to be like, I'm running out of time to figure this thing out. It took really, really long in the movie to realize that Katie was going to hurt people in a bad way. That happens like deep into the second act, almost the third act, to where you're like, oh shit, now it's a real problem. Now it's the kind of problem we can't ignore. He's just sort of buried in his investigative work. And I'm like, that's fine that you're investigating stuff. I get it. But there was no sense of contrast. There was no sense of conflict where I was like, they better hurry the fuck up and figure this out. Clearly, they were in no rush. They were in no rush because the things that were weird and happening in the house didn't affect anything. In fact, all it really did was just drive a rift between Charlie and Larissa, his wife, because they couldn't agree on what to do with Katie. He was like, she should go into a home because she's not well. And Larissa's like, I'm going to take care of her here. She's my daughter. I haven't seen her in 8 years. She's not going anywhere. I understood both of their perspectives, but that was just an argument. It wasn't them going, we need to make a decision right now because something is really, really wrong and we have to act. That's what was missing for me. The urgency to act on something because of what's happening in the movie. Instead, it's just a lot of an investigation, a lot of ooky shit, a lot of gross out moments, a lot of gore, but it's not making me go, hurry up and figure it out. It's just making me go, hurry up and end this movie because nothing seems to be happening.
Well, here's the thing. So I actually said I really did enjoy this movie, and I think a lot of it was because I do love the investigative part of it because that's just a reporter.
Sure.
I like the investigation. But I agree with you in the sense of like the time it takes to get there because there is a moment that is super creepy when they basically at one point, because early in the movie, like Katie basically escapes her, like she's catatonic, like she's not talking, she's not really even moving, and so like they just assume she's like in a catatonic state. But at one point, she literally climbs out of her bed and goes into like one of the crawl spaces that kind of goes in the bowels of the house. And she's like crawling through there, like running and shit. And they're like trying to chase after her. And they eventually put locks on her doors, so like make sure she can't get out and stuff like that. I get all that. And then while the investigation's happening, the father finds these bandages. He realizes there's writing on them. He takes them to an actual archaeologist who teaches like a professor at a college. And like gets I liked all that. I liked all that.
Sure.
That was great. That is the only reason I didn't notice as much the fact that the other stuff wasn't ratcheting up, because when the really creepy shit happens, and this is when it starts, is when Maud is the other daughter, the younger daughter who wasn't born when Katie was kidnapped. She goes by the door to go to the bathroom, and she hears Katie being like, "Maud, come here." And she's like, she hasn't talked. Like, and she's like talking in a totally normal voice. She's like, "Come here," and like she's like, "I'm your sister," or whatever. And like, of course, I mean, the girl's like 6 years old, maybe 7. Not even like she was
8. Yeah.
No, she was. I guess she'd be 7 because like it was 8 years ago, and she was
something
pregnant.
like
so
that.
Let's just say 7. So it's still a very little girl. And she stands by the door, and the really creepy part, like Katie's like, "I really like the way your toes taste," or something. She like licks her toes. It's really gross under the door, but that lick infects her. And now her sister's infected with whatever, like, whatever weird, like, curse she's putting on her sister. So her sister goes to school, and Lily Sullivan, who makes a very brief appearance from the Evil Dead Rise movie, she shows up as Maud's teacher, and she's like, "You're a rat-faced cunt." And I'm like, "Oh, gee." But like, and as things escalate, like, Katie's influence is totally messing up Maud as well, and then eventually gets to her brother Sebastian. That's when it ratchets up. That's when it starts getting really, really like, okay, we got to do something here. That should have happened sooner. That should have happened. That should have happened while the father's doing the investigation, because he's concerned with finding out what actually happened to Katie. And they spend a lot of time with the mother being like, "You're not taking my daughter anywhere." And I get the instinct of it. I do.
Sure.
But I think it's a different instinct than her crawling through the walls versus her sister's now exhibiting weird behavior, and then her brother starts exhibiting weird behavior, and eventually she ends up attacking her grandmother and basically chucking her grandmother out a window and like killing her. That should have happened sooner. While the investigations go, you could have both things happening. It could have just been condensed into one part of the movie versus like they do like 30 minutes of building of like Katie's catatonic, Katie's doing weird shit at night. Just have her start right away. Like, I mean, we don't need to build. Like,
and
I
that's
think that
after the first 30 minutes of world building, which there was a cold open, and then there was what happened with the Cannon family, and then there was what happened after the Cannon family did 8 years later. There was a lot of build up before that even.
I didn't mind that world building part up to that point. Like when they get the call that they found their daughter, that's cool. I'm cool with all it because it was like really established them as a family. I get all that. But it took a long time from Katie coming home to Katie doing shit that just is not possible and really would have to be questioned. If they would have moved there quicker, it was almost like they were waiting for the demon to wake up or some shit. I'm just like, why are we waiting here? Just get it moving.
Yeah.
Now, once they get it moving, shit goes haywire. Like when she kicks her grandmother out of the freaking window and she falls to a pretty brutal death. It's pretty gnarly, you know what I mean? It's pretty gnarly, and then obviously what she does to her sister, and eventually gets to her brother as well. It's pretty gruesome shit. It just takes too long to get there, and I think that if her father's doing the investigation, and there's weird shit's happening at home, and maybe the mother is like kind of in denial because like, and I get it, you just got your daughter back that you thought was gone forever, and she's back. She's like, nothing really is going on, and she's not telling her husband what's going on, and then he eventually finds out. He's like, honey, we got to do some shit here. Like, our daughter's messed up. This is not getting better. That would have worked better. It just takes too long to get there in that, like, 30-minute section. And as I said, it's a 2 hour and 13-minute movie. You could have easily condensed it down to 140 by that. just get to that point.
Hmm.
Because, and I think you probably admit, like once they get to the weird shit, like where she infects her brother and sister, and there's a funeral, like there's some pretty nasty shit going on there. Where like they're like, okay, Katie is really fucked up, and we need to figure out why, what's going, how we're gonna fix this, or how we're gonna, how we're gonna save our daughter. That like that when it got to that point, there was no denying it.
It was nasty, but even that stuff I have a problem with because what another issue with this movie is it was one of these movies where once the problem escalated itself, the solution almost immediately presented itself. So it was just a matter of getting to it, and then that solution would kind of very conveniently show up within moments. And so it was kind of frustrating how that, because I think they were trying to make the back half of the movie move because they realized how much world building they were doing up front. That moment with Maud and her and Katie happens over an hour into the movie. Over an hour. It's a long time in, and then all the other stuff comes after that. So we're talking deep into the movie when all this shit is hitting the fan. So then they have to make up for it by going, well, we spent so much time investigating all this shit. The problem's here, the solution's there. They pick it up, and it gets solved. And so all of a sudden, you're just like, okay. And then they just kind of barrel towards the end by solving everything as it gets out in front of them. I never felt truly like Charlie and Larissa and even Sebastian and Maud were in terrible danger. I was just like, every time a new clue pops up, they immediately apply it and fix that one plug. That's usually how it goes. If I were to dare rewrite a Living Dead this thing, the night that Katie comes home is the night that Maud starts acting funny. And the night that Katie comes home, Katie does something where she just whispers into her mother's ear, like, I want to talk to you, Mom, but it has to just be you and me. Something to motivate all those things. Something to make it so it makes sense that everybody's clouded in this place and they won't leave while Charlie's investigating. And we're going like, well, why is Katie only talking to Mom? What's going on there? Then he learns, oh, there's this demon that is manipulating my family to try and tear us all apart. I didn't realize that. That's what was going on back here. Problems over here. I'm looking for solutions. Now I understand why. Like instead it was, I'll find all the problems, all the solutions, all the things, and then all the shit will hit the fan and then we'll solve it all. And it was like, I didn't like how it was. I didn't like how it was laid out. And that just didn't, to me, that just made for like a very, like this movie didn't thrill me at all when it should have been thrilling. It's very gory at times. It's very insane at times. You talk about the talking behind the door, and it happens multiple times. And I was like, Jesus Christ, that's right out of Evil Dead Rise. That's right out of the mother outside the door with the eye hole, talking to her kids in the sweet voice. And I was like, that's weird. And there was one other thing. There was one other thing. I was like, this is just like Evil Dead Rise. What was it? I'm looking here. Oh, sorry. I should have had it ready to go. Oh, the other thing is during his investigation, he's hearing like incantations. He's like playing a record. And I was like, that's right out of Evil Dead Rise. Now it didn't create something, like listening to the incantation didn't create an evil spirit or something like that. But I was like, wow, it's weird that he's borrowing so heavily from this other movie that I'm very familiar with that I really like. And then really that final act of the movie, I'll hand it over to you to talk about the final act of the movie. But I was like, are they about to Evil Dead our motherfucking asses? I was almost sure that by the end we were in a room full of deadites.
I wonder if when Lee Cronin was making Evil Dead Rise, if there was part of him that wanted to inject more mythology, and the studio or producers or whatever, like, no, we got to keep this to an hour and 30 minutes. Like, it can't be more than this. Because, I mean, and let's be honest, like, you could dig deeper into the Necronomicon. They have some really cool scenes in that movie, like the records, and the records are playing backwards, and you hear, like,
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell's voices on them and everything. It almost felt like Lee Cronin's like, I want more of that. I want more mythology to explain what's actually happening here. And so he injected it into the new Mummy movie. Because I'll be honest, weirdly to say this, like the actual mummy itself, Katie, when she's possessed by this evil demon, it's fine. And like I said, once it gets that last like half hour, things get pretty crazy. Like they really ratchet up the fucking gross and the gore, and the siblings are acting fucking weird. The one girl pulls out all her teeth, and the brother's bashing his own head against his fucking bed rail. And you're like, Jesus Christ. That's when it starts getting kind of harrowing because everyone is in danger. The grandma's dead. It gets pretty harrowing. But my favorite part of the movie, honestly, was the investigation. I wanted to know what happened to Katie. And, like, the detective in Egypt is really doing that on her, well, not on her own, because the dad does find out some shit. And at one point, which is, I did enjoy this. So, very beginning, not very beginning, early in the movie when you meet Katie and you meet her dad, he's teaching her how to speak in Morse code. And so she's, like, tapping out things and he's spelling it out for her. And at one point, he realized she's chattering her teeth. And he realizes that is Katie trying to communicate with him because even though she's possessed by this demon, there is still something Katie inside of her. And he realizes she's chattering her teeth in Morse code. And so he types it out and he realizes she's saying Layla over and over and over again. And he calls the cops, the one in Egypt, which, like I said, should have just been in Egypt. They needed to fucking make the international call from New Mexico to Egypt. Neither here nor there now. But he's like, is there somebody named Layla? And she's like, well, there's a million Laylas. I need more information. Has anyone ever reached out to your family, like, with the name Layla? And so he has this ginormous box of cards and letters. Obviously he's a, I wouldn't say like a super famous, reporter, but obviously I'm sure this story would have blown up, hugely blown up.
Yeah.
And they got a million letters from people saying, we have our support, whatever we can do. And that's very common. He starts digging through, and he spends hours digging through, and he finally finds one letter that has a photo of the candy that kind of lured Katie into the woods before she was kidnapped. She had built this relationship with her friend Layla and her mother, and they became very friendly with her, and then that's why she was very like when she approached him, she's like, oh yeah, I know you guys, and then they kidnapped her. He digs through now. I will say, like, it's a little heavy-handed. They have the front of the card, which actually has the candy drawn on it. I'm like, didn't you notice? Wouldn't you have noticed this 8 years ago? But okay,
little convenient.
But they pull it out. There's the candy on the front. Of course, he's like, oh shit, it's the candy that she was eating. Flips it open and says, I'm sorry, Katie was my best friend. I'm sorry this happened to her, and it's signed Layla Khalil. So, of course, he reaches out to the detective.
Oh, it doesn't even say that, Damon. It literally says, I'm sorry that this happened to you, like specifically, Katie. We're sorry that, I think it said something almost to the effect of like that we did this to you. It was something like super specific.
It said something to the effect of, I'm really sorry we had to do this to her. Katie was my best friend. And it said Layla Khalil.
Yeah, it's essentially a confession.
Yeah, but, so he calls the detective, and I get to a certain, like, the heavy-handedness of the candy on the cover is a bit much. But I do understand not, like, digging through every single letter you've ever gotten. That's just going to be painful to sit there and read a million letters from a million strangers saying, oh, yeah, we're sorry, whatever. So I understand just, like, piling it all in a box and just not thinking about it because, like, when you come to terms with your child is gone, you probably just want to, like, me personally, I'm like, well, put it outside out of mind. I don't want to be reminded of it constantly. So he reaches out to the detective, and the detective, tracks down the Layla Khalil, and she finds she realizes that, like, of all the places she's looking at, and she finds one place that is near a tangerine farm. And she remembers during the original investigation, when Katie got kidnapped, they found a rotted tangerine in that little wooded area. And they never knew what it was, obviously, just a rotted tangerine. But, like, looking back on it, she realized, she's like, oh, that tangerine farm, and there's someone named Layla Khalil who lives there. And so she goes out and investigates, and we find the mother and the one daughter that we saw at the very beginning of the movie, which the cold open takes a little bit too long as well. Like, I feel like it could have been a little shorter, like almost like, let's just put them in the mummy situation right away. And
right. Yeah.
Like they're riding in a car and they get home and it's like, what are we doing here? So she goes and finds the weird mother. They call the magician is what they could. They never give her a name. But she finds the magician in this house, and she digs through the house. She finds the pit where the sarcophagus was, and all this other weird shit in the house. Then she eventually, finds Layla Khalil, and Layla goes out into the backyard and digs up a box, and inside is like some of Katie's possessions and a videotape that just says Katie. Puts in the videotape, and once again, we have to wait. She has to travel across fucking sea, and she has to go to New Mexico. It's like, why not just all for the 9,000th time, just put it all in Egypt. Anyways, she gets back there, and she's like, you need to see this. And they show her the videotape, and it's almost like an instructional because the mother, the magician, is recording this to show like if she's gone, somebody needs to know how to perform this ritual. She tells them like there's this ancient curse by the Nosmerian. It's cursed our family, and the only way we can contain it is to continuously pass that spirit along to a human person to trap it in the mummification in the sarcophagus so it never escapes. And a child works best because they live longer. So she tells this whole thing, and then you actually see them perform the ritual on Katie, and it's pretty. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's a hard watch because little kids crying and mom, I want my mommy and dad. Oh, it's pretty brutal. Even I was like, I was a little uncomfortable, which I think once again works to why I think Lee Cronin's idea of using a child was a good idea. And you see, they conduct this really weird ritual, and they lean Katie over the sarcophagus, and the mummy spits up into her mouth, and they've transferred the spirit from the now dying person into the living young girl, and they trap her in the sarcophagus. And their parents are watching this, and they're pretty affected by it, and I get it. So they're basically like, the only way to save Katie is to more or less like exhume the spirit from her. So let me get to the ending. So everything goes fucking haywire after the grandmother's funeral. Like, it's just full on haywire shit. Both the other kids are acting fucked up. Katie's clearly fucked up. Grandma's dead. Everyone's being attacked. The detective even shows up. She gets stabbed in the neck. Like, it's just going, it's full on haywire. And at one point, the dad is able to like hold on to Katie, and he tells the detective, do you remember the chant from the videotape? And they were doing this like over and over chant that like basically forced the original mummy to spit it into Katie's mouth. And he's like, do you remember the chant? And she'd been stabbed, she'd been eaten it, she was forced to eat a scorpion, and the scorpion kind of poked itself out of her throat. She was able to save herself, but she had trouble talking. She's like pressing on her throat, she's like chanting the chant. And she gets through it, and Katie spits out the demon into her dad's mouth. And that, like, he sacrificed himself for the sake of his daughter. And I was like, I get it. That was cool. I like that. Kind of saw it coming, but
yeah,
I get it. And, and by the way, like, the dad was the one who was suspicious from minute one. The mom was like, this is my daughter. I'm not, you're fuck off. Like, I'm taking care of my daughter. And the dad's like, I think something's wrong with her. So he sacrifices himself, and they trap him in the sarcophagus. He's like in there, and Katie actually comes back to life. Like, now she doesn't have the demon inside of her anymore, and slowly but surely she comes back. And so the dad is in the sarcophagus. They have him trapped in the basement, very much like what happened in Egypt. And I was like, good ending. Like sacrifice, much like, I know Evil Dead Rise, kind of the same thing. Like, you sacrifice yourself for your children. The dad did it. I was like, you're now imbibed, but you're gonna have this demon inside of you until you die, and it has to get passed on to the next person. They took it one step too far after that, Patrick, because we go back to Egypt again, and now we're with the magician, and she's in a hospital. The cops shot her when she got into the house. She tried to attack her. She shot her. Now she's in like a psychiatric ward, but she's in there like, and a nurse comes in. And she's like, haven't you taken enough blood already? And the nurse just jabs her in the neck with a syringe, and she leans over, and it's the mother. And then it's the detective, and they show up, and they have, what's the dad's name in this movie? Why am I forgetting his name?
Charlie.
Charlie. They have Charlie in a wheelchair, and of course now he's all wrapped in the mummification, and he's clearly possessed by the demon. And they start doing the chant again, and the idea is like, now Charlie's going to put the curse of the mummy, the curse of the Nosmerian, into the magician, and that's literally the end of the movie. And I'm just like, took it one step too far.
Yeah.
Charlie being infected or possessed or whatever, that was a cool ending. Like, I was like, you sacrificed
there's a tragedy
yourself.
to it.
You sacrificed yourself for the sake of your child. Like, I was like, that was kind of cool. Why did you have to take it to the next step? I did not need that. I did not need to be like, you know what? We got to save everybody. So even the dad gets, I'm like, no, the dad sacrificing himself was the perfect ending.
I know. There's almost a Disney quality to this movie where it's just like everybody's going to be all right. It's like Disney meets Hereditary, which some people might go, oh, that sounds awesome. And they may like it for all I know. You liked it too. But yeah, I was just like, oh man, like this movie is now laborious because just like you said, so that means a 40 plus hour flight with this guy who's infected with this mummy curse to get all the way back to Cairo to go find this woman who's locked up to go inject her with the thing. And it's just like, I get it, guys. I think we did it. I think we did it an hour ago. I don't think we need to keep going on this, but this movie belabors itself. It's all over this movie. So it makes
But
sense that it had a laborious ending as well.
but even to your point, that like I know you didn't like it. Like I said, I did enjoy it. I really did enjoy the movie. But if it had ended on that note where it's like they got their daughter back, but at the sake of losing the father, I think that would have been like a worthwhile ending, right? Like that's
That
what
would
you
have
do.
been better for sure.
You sacrifice yourself to save your children, and throughout it all, like he's been the one. Charlie's the one doubting this the entire time. Like he's the one like there's something clearly wrong with our daughter. And the mother, I mean, to her credit, I guess, like she just wants her daughter back, and I get it. Like there's that instinct of like this is my child. I'm going to do anything I can to protect and help them. Whereas the dad is like that investigative journalist inside him is like, I need to know what happened. I'm happy she's back, but I need to know what happened to her because she's clearly fucked up. And so him being the one who's like in theory, you think the mom's going to do it, right? Like the mom's going to sacrifice herself for her daughter because she's been that kind of that way the entire movie. Charlie's like, in that moment, he's like, you remember the chant? And, she pours it back into his mouth and now he's infected and they lock him in the sarcophagus. It's sad, but you got Katie back, the family's still together and, they're living now. And it's kind of like, yeah, like that's kind of the perfect ending in a way. Like, the self-sacrifice of a parent, because I'm sure you have children, you walk in traffic for them.
Absolutely.
And that's what Charlie does. Like Charlie literally walks in traffic. He takes this demon, this ancient demon into himself to save his daughter. Perfect. That's a great ending. But then they're like, oh no, we got to get Charlie back too. Like I almost would have appreciated more. They're like, we're going to do a Mummy sequel, and that's where we do the Charlie thing. Like, actually, we're going to put in this other person. Like, I did not need the Disney ending. I just didn't. I like the dour ending of like, yeah, the dad didn't make it. Like he was the one who had suspicions the entire time. In the end, he is the one who has to sacrifice himself. That was the perfect ending.
I even had a note before I knew the movie was going to have another 15 minutes. I said, oh, this is a very dad moment where we can all finally smile again now that dad is locked in an internal hell. Like perfect. Like it's a very dad moment. It's like everybody's happy as long as dad is absolutely miserable. Like there's a very family oriented ending actually. But yeah, they just, again, this movie was laborious in my opinion. It was a labor to watch this movie.
And as I said, overall I enjoyed it, but I can agree that the 2 hours and like when I remember I was going to the theater tonight and I always time it out because I try to get there like right as the trailers end. Like it's impossible to know for sure, but I try. And I walked in, I think I got 2 trailers, and the movie started. And before it started, I was like, "What's the runtime?" I was like 2 hours and 13. I was like, "Why is this 2 hours and 13 minutes? This is a really long movie." And I got into it, and like I said, I still really enjoyed it, but it should have been an hour and 40 or an hour and 35. It did not need to be 2 hours and 13 minutes. And that is I think the 2 biggest parts are, one was the opening where it takes 30 minutes to get to Katie truly being evil, and then
oh no, it takes an hour to get there.
we gotta go back and forth between fucking Egypt and New Mexico. Like, let's just put it all in one location. Think about how much time you could have saved if, like, Charlie was helping the detective on the investigation. They found the tape together, they watched it, and they go home. That would, like, whatever. Like, I think that, like, they added so much extra time with, like, having them in different places. And the dad's conducting an investigation, and the cops are like, why not have him and the cop just working the entire time together?
Yeah. And that even blows the tape reveal because she learns all the process in Cairo and then flies all the way to New Mexico and goes, now I have to show you the process. And it's like, this isn't even a reveal at this point. I already know what the process is. You're just showing it to me.
She doesn't say the process. She's like, you need to see what happened to Katie. Like,
right. But it was like she learned what happened to Katie way the fuck over there. And then she comes all the way to America to show us what happened to Katie, even though we already learned about it over there. So it's like we're literally doing it twice. And I was just like, guys, what? Like, and it so that moment where you see the tape doesn't land with the impact it should have, because it is an intense scene. But I was like, yes, I knew this was happening because you explained it back in Cairo. Yeah, and I'm like, okay.
If they would have just had Charlie working with the detective as like a 2-man team, and they find it and they're watching it, and it's like, I compared it to True Detective. There's a great scene in the penultimate episode of True Detective season 1 where Rust is like, you got to watch this, and he puts it down and hands Marty a flask of whiskey, and you don't see what's going on, but you just hear Marty going, no, some really evil shit just took place. They could have just done that with this, like, because the videotape is disturbing. Like, it's really hard to watch a little girl getting, like, chained up, and she's crying for her mom and dad. It's pretty fucking gnarly, even for a guy who doesn't have kids like myself. But it's pretty gnarly. It's pretty hard to watch. But we need it at once. Like, they show like half the video in Egypt, and then she's like, "I got to fly into Mexico. You need to see this," and we watch it over again. And I'm just
I'm like, I already saw this.
Like,
what are we doing?
One time would have been plenty. Yeah, like little choices like that was just like, why do we need, like, just, I know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to repeat myself. Just have it all happen in Egypt. All of it happened.
That's the theme of this episode, is just make the whole thing happen in Egypt. It would have saved a lot of time. It would have saved us about 30 minutes.
Yeah, at least 30 minutes. But yeah, that. And then the ending, I loved the ending the way it was until there were just,
you mean, you loved ending number 1. You didn't like ending number 2.
I loved ending number 1. I was like, and because like there's a very sweet moment where Katie's tapping on the sarcophagus and the thing, and she's tapping back. It's the sign language, or the Morse code.
Morse code, yeah.
So he's still kind of in there, because Katie did that with her dad. Like, she told him Layla, even though she was possessed by this demon, she knew enough to tap out Layla. That was cool. That was it. Like, a little hope, right? A little hope. Like, he's still kind of in there, much like Katie was still kind of in there. But clearly he's being trapped in the sarcophagus and he's possessed by this demon. He's not going to he ain't coming back to the dinner table anytime soon. But why? Why do we need the second ending? I was like, and that, by the way, that second ending's in there 10 minutes. Like,
yeah. How about this? She just turns around, the mom jabs her, and then she looks and the door swings open and they're wheeling him in. Cut to black. I know what's happening next. Like, you don't need to spend another 10 minutes on it. That's this movie in a nutshell. It's like, you did this too much. Do less. Yeah. I don't often subscribe to less is more, but in this instance, it would have been.
And I wonder, and this is not a knock on Lee Cronin, but I wonder if he had so much good will built from Evil Dead Rise, because it was it was a really good movie. It was a really
great movie.
And I think I can't remember. I know we did rank the Evil Dead movies at one point. I think you had the 2013 Fede Alvarez as number 1. And I think I had Evil Dead Rise as number 1 and Fede Alvarez as number 2. And the reason why, I've said a million times in the show, I don't really enjoy the jokey, funny, goofy Evil Dead. I just don't. They're just not my cup of tea. Evil Dead Rise was fucking gnarly, and it was, and overall it was very well received and made money. I can't help but wonder, they're like, okay, Lee, you got a good idea here, run with it. And
maybe run with less.
Yeah, just a little editing in there, So, Patrick, let's get into some categories. Let's kick things off as we do each and every week here on the show, and let's talk about best performance. Now, I will say this is a pretty well-acted movie. I do enjoy the acting in this movie. So who gets your award for best performance when it comes to Lee Cronin's The Mummy?
My best performance goes to Natalie Grace, who plays adult Katie, or grown. I think she's like 17 or 18 years old when she's in the mummy situation. Natalie Grace has to be this sort of possessed thing. It really was almost like a possession movie. That's really how this movie plays. And she does a lot of, like, I would even say stereotypical possession stuff in this movie, but it's a very physical and demanding role. And you got to have, your take on it. And I think Natalie's take on it was kind of interesting. She was like, yeah, what if I am sort of mummified? What if I am sort of this husk of a human? I liked that approach overall.
I think overall, in general, the kids did a good job in this movie. We've talked about, we try never to take low blows at children actors because they're just children. But we've said many times, children actors can kind of make or break a movie. I think they all did pretty good. But for me, Patrick, my best performance goes to May Kalamawi as the detective from Egypt. I saw her. I don't know. Did you ever watch Moon Knight, the Marvel series
Oh,
Moon
I
Knight?
hated it. I turned it off after like 2 episodes. I was
Well,
like,
she was
get this
in
out of my face.
she was in that, so that's where I knew her from that. But she plays the detective. I thought she did a really good job, like playing that role and investigating. Like I said, I could have used. Like I said, honestly, the investigative part was my favorite part of the movie. I liked like how they explained like what it was, what the demon was, how you possess, how it gets transferred. I liked all that. I just would have liked to have been condensed and all happened in Egypt. Sorry for saying that the 9,000 times this podcast. But I thought she played a really convincing cop and detective and kind of leading the investigation in Egypt. I thought she did a really good job. When she came to America, she kind of jumped into action, helped the family. And but like I said, I mean, Jack Rayner, I think he did a good job, and Leia Costa's a mom. I think they all did a pretty good job, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like the quality of this movie, there's nothing wrong with the quality of it. It really feels like a studio film, like something that was made with the utmost attention to all of those things. It's just the story was a bloated corpse.
Patrick, next category, let's talk about MVP. So when it comes to Lee Cronin's The Mummy, I know I have to keep saying the name. What is your MVP for this movie?
My MVP goes to the practical effects team. They were having a ball. They probably had more fun than anybody on this. There's a lot of gore in this movie, and it's pretty much throughout. I mean, that's the one thing I can give this movie is that they probably give you a taste of something nasty and disgusting and slimy and gross at least every 10 minutes, minimum every 10 minutes, you get something that is absolutely blood curdling or gross or skin crawling. There's a lot of that in this movie. This movie feels very sticky, very wet, very bloody, very infected, lots of skin detail. I think the effects team here did a great job.
I would probably say, in all reality, this is the MVP because the effects in this movie are really strong. Like the actual, the actual makeup and the gore,
Yeah.
phenomenal job. Weirdly, though, I'm going to go in another one, and this is not. I promise you, it's not a backhanded compliment because I do like Lee Cronin. I mean, for me personally, he's 2 for 2 in the movies I've seen. I know I've talked a lot about the issues of this movie, but overall, I still did really enjoy it. I just could have used a little bit less of it, like 30 minutes less of it. But overall, I still really enjoyed the action, and I loved the way into this movie in terms of like how we got to the mummy itself. Like whatever. It wasn't a 3,000-year-old mummy just waking up. But weirdly, my MVP for this movie goes to Stephen McKeon, who handled the music for this movie. Now, here's why. You're going to be like, this is a weird one for why? Anytime, and this is, by the way, the 1999 Mummy, too. Anytime you watch a movie that takes place in Egypt, they got to get you the cheesy Egypt music. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right?
that guitar, that stringy sounding guitar,
you know what I'm
the
talking
sitar.
about. Yes. Every single time, and it's so annoying that it's like, oh, we gotta prove we're like whenever they show like if you do a show and it goes in India, they gotta do the India. It's like, come on, like do we have to like do the really stereotypical thing here? They didn't. In this movie, they didn't do the stereotypical Egypt thing. Like every time we were in Egypt, we didn't have to hear the fucking sitar. Like they just played it as like a regular movie.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Little details like that make a difference for me because I will say, like, when I watch a lot of movies, like, hey, we got to prove we're in Egypt. Let's get them to Egypt movie. Let's get them to Egypt music, and we got to show the fucking pyramids in the background because that's the only way you can know you're in Egypt. It's so dumb. I appreciate they didn't go down that route because I loved listening to scores of movies, and the better ones stand out. And this is one I was like, oh my god, they didn't just use the generic like, hey, we're in Egypt. By the way, here's the Egypt music for you.
I didn't even notice the score, but I'm glad you did, Damon. I'm good. The composers never get MVPs on these things, so props to that guy.
Yeah. Patrick, next category, let's talk about best gore. Now, this is a very gory movie, man. Like I said, if you are a gore fan, you are going to like this. This is a big list of gore. So, Patrick, what is your best gore for The Mummy? Or, excuse me, Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Lee Cronin's The Gore, it was all over this movie. And there was one moment that I called the undressing. Now, deep into the movie, it is time to now take all of the cursed wraps off of Katie's body. So she calls her brother into her room and she's like, help me undress. And you're like, that's gross. Don't say that again to your brother. But what they do is they have to peel away all those things. So she's got him glamored to peel away all them. It's like essentially like spells that are wrapped all around her body. And as she's pulling them off, it looks like flaying pieces of skin is basically what it is. Very creative idea, very creative way into this mummy stuff. I gotta give him props for that. That's very interesting the way they did it. And in that moment, she's like, let's lift this curse all the way off my body. And it's going to look like you are taking thin slices of skin and ripping them off of my body. And under it is that reddish, kind of raw skin, that reddish and yellowish coloring. Again, the effects people I think did a tremendous job on this movie, but that in particular, I was like, this is gory as shit right now.
One of my favorite movie tricks that I do enjoy so much is when you get that visceral reaction to a gory scene. And a big one for everyone in Evil Dead Rise was the cheese grater.
Sure.
We've all accidentally rubbed against a cheese grater. We know how much it fucking hurts. But like literally think about like grinding your skin. It's a visceral moment. You remember one of our favorite movies from a few years ago from our good friends Justin Powell and David Charbonnier, Boy Behind the Door, the toenail.
Yes.
I say toenail to you. If you've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. There's a scene when Katie's in her wheelchair and they're trying to like fix her up. Her grandma's trying to do her hair and her mom's like washing her, and she goes down and she has these really gnarled fingernails because she's been in a sarcophagus for 8 years, and she starts cutting the toenails, and the first one chips out and literally bounces up into her mouth, which is gross enough as it is, but then she's got like her actual like big toe, and she's trying to cut it and it won't cut, and it's so it gives me like skin crawl because you see the toenail peeling off the toe as she's trying to cut it, and at one point she's like, it's not cutting, and she like jams down and it like splits up her leg and like pops out. Oh my God. It's just like,
it takes so a whole piece of her shin off, basically.
Yeah,
it just rips the whole front of her shin off.
It's so gnarly because it starts out as a toenail gag and then literally becomes like gory because it rips off half of her shin because it just like peels off and then peels all the way. And you're like, oh my God. And I'm not squeamish about that kind of stuff, but one thing that Lee Cronin knows how to do, man, he'll give you a fucking close-up. And boy, does he get deep on that toe, and it is gross as shit. So that's the one that got me. I was like, oh, God.
Oh, yeah. No, there's plenty of good gore in this movie. I just wish it came in much more compact succession.
Yeah. Patrick, next category, can we survive this horror film? Pretty self-explanatory, but this is where we take whatever movie we're reviewing and we basically put ourselves in the film and we say, can we survive this horror movie? Now, Patrick, I'm putting you in a scenario. You're a dad. You have a couple kids. Now, you don't have 3 kids. They have 3 kids in this movie. You have 2 kids. You are now Charlie. You are Charlie Cannon. Are you making it out of here?
Damon, I am making it out of here, and I'll tell you why. Because the rules of Lee Cronin's The Mummy are you're going to find the thing out, and then it's immediately going to solve the one problem in front of you. Then you just have to find the other thing out, and that will also solve the problem. And even when I thought we had solved the problem by locking Dad in an eternal hell, we even solved that problem, Damon. Lee Cronin's The Mummy says, guess what? Everyone survives except for Grandma.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately I'd have to put myself in either Charlie as the investigative reporter or the cop because, like I said, I love the investigation. And by the way, that's probably my favorite part of the story is actually like the story of like the mummy, like, you know, the actual.
Yeah, you'd probably be my detective, Dahlia. Like that's her name. Like I'd be like, Damon, figure this shit out. Like find all the things. And Damon, of course, an investigative reporter, one of the best in the business, 25 years going strong. You'd figure it out for me.
And that honestly, even though like I know it's not really having anything to do with like the creepy mummy shit, like that was my favorite because I liked that story. Like it's an ancient demon. They got to trap it in its body. I was like, that's a really cool idea, and I liked how they developed that. So I guess technically I'd be like the cop in this role, and yeah, I'd probably make it, but I would also be like, yeah, fuck these kids. Like I would just like,
if a scorpion burst out of your throat, you'd be like, I'm going home now. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going home now.
Yeah, I'm going home, guys. Fuck these kids. Yeah. So, or like she has a gun. I'd be like, oh, you love your daughter. Well, guess what? Your daughter no longer has a fucking head. Okay, I'm sorry to tell you this. So, yeah, like I got no sentimentality. Like, I'll help you find your kid, but after that, I'm out. So yeah, I think I make it. Like I think everyone kind of makes this movie except like you said,
Everyone.
grandma.
Yeah, everyone but grandma, who, by the way, was just being stupid time and time and time again. So at some point, you're going, yeah, grandma, it's time for you to go.
Yeah, and she got pretty gnarly too. She got thrown out of a window and eaten by coyotes.
I know she gets ripped apart by coyotes. I was like, oh, cool.
Which, by the way, they then put her in the in a coffin, and they somehow got her looking great. And I was like, who the fuck are these like guys? Like, if I die, can I get these guys? Because man, they made her look good. Like she looked better in death than in life. After she got ripped apart by coyotes.
Yeah.
Patrick, next category, excuse me. Remake, sequel, or leave it alone. Now, this is already like the 9,000th Mummy remake, but when you think about Lee Cronin's The Mummy, would you remake it, would you sequelize it, or would you just leave it alone?
Damon, here's the harsh reality. It's getting a remake at some point. Like it will probably go. I don't know how well it's going to do. I haven't looked at tracking for this movie. It's a little early. It's opening night, so as of this recording, so I don't know how it's going to track this weekend. I'm expecting it to do okay and to pretty well, but unless it is a smash at the box office, like 100 million by the end of the week, I'm guessing it will quietly fade, and then a remake will come down the line eventually because that's all they know how to do with the Mummy.
You know, I'm going to say remake, but remake into the version we made on this show.
Our rewrite.
Yeah. Like, because like I said, the elements of I like this movie. It sounds like I don't. I really did like this movie. I just would have liked it better edited and like the story going in like a more cohesive manner in terms of like getting there quicker. Give me the hour and 35-minute version of this movie. Take it out of fucking New Mexico, just put it in Spain or put it in Egypt or wherever. Put it all in one location. And I think it would be a pretty good movie. Like I said, I like the story element. I like putting it in a child versus like an adult. I didn't need like a 3,000-year-old mummy just waking up. None of that. I liked everything about this story. It just, A, took too long to get there, and B, why are we doing it in two locations? Didn't need that. Should have just all been in Egypt. Cut this down to an hour. If the fourth category in this category is editing, edit this movie, and then I think it would be a better movie, and I would really, really enjoy it. So I guess remake, but remake it with the edits, because you don't really, I mean, outside of like the location, you can't really edit that down, but outside of that, like just edit it down to an hour and 35-minute movie. I think it works a lot better.
Oh, I know it works a lot better.
Patrick, last category, is it scary? So when it comes to Lee Cronin's The Mummy, is it scary?
Damon, I'm a big fan of Lee Cronin. I think he does a great job. This is not a bad movie on its face. I was bored to tears. I genuinely was. And it's back to my reasoning, which is I don't feel there was any escalation, and those stakes never felt real until kind of right near the end of the movie, basically, where it was just like, oh, now we really need to do something. But good news is we have all the tools we need to do it, so it gets done. So I never felt like anyone was in peril. As crazy and as insane as this movie gets, and it does at times, it does go full Sam Raimi at times. It really gets into that, but I was always like, yeah, but they have the thing figured out, and then like almost instantly they figure it out. Nothing about that is scary to me. There's no dread. There's no sense of thrills. There's no sense of like, uh-oh, will they or won't they? No, they will. It's fine. It's all worked itself out rather quickly, even though the movie's very long.
I'll disagree in the sense of like I do think there's dread because, like I said, when you're dealing with children being in harrowing situations, it can be pretty dreadful. And I think like that videotape of showing what happens to Katie is pretty creepy. And I said like the general idea of having the mummy be a child is pretty creepy and also a little scary. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I was jumping out of my seat or anything, but it was very gory. You know, Lee Cronin knows how to shoot gory, messed up, nasty, skin ripping scenes. In that regard, I would say, yeah, it works really well for me in that regard. And like I said, overall, the story was good. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna put this in like the Mummy lexicon. Like, yeah, I still like the 1999 Mummy, the movie, the best. The Mummy Returns is great, but I would rather watch this 1,000 times over than ever watch that Tom Cruise piece of shit again. And I did at one point watch the original. I think it's Boris Karloff plays the Mummy in the original like 1931 movie or whatever. And I was like, yeah, this doesn't do it for me. I don't really get the appeal of this movie. I understood Bela Lugosi and Dracula, and I understood Boris Karloff as Frankenstein. I personally prefer the Hammer Frankenstein films. Being honest, no offense to Boris Karloff, but I actually prefer those movies. But yeah, like I would still take this 1,000 times over. Like if we're putting this in like the new Universal monster movies, like Invisible Man is still the gold standard. Mm-hmm. And then I would probably put Mummy number 2 because like I really like Wolfman was just it was not good. It was just not a good movie. It was really like, what are we doing here? And so like I would put it above Nosferatu. If you're gonna put that as like a Dracula movie, like Dracula, that talk about a movie that dragged. That was fucking Nosferatu. That movie dragged for fucking ever.
We don't have time to disagree on that as hard as I'd like to, but yes.
Oh my god, the way you talk about this movie dragging is the way that Nosferatu dragged. It was like, oh my god, put me out of my misery already. So yeah. I liked it, and I'm not going to sit there and say it was the scariest movie. I'm just saying, like, for me, it was harrowing enough, and they did a good job of putting the fright of it being a child, which is, I think, always going to ratchet it up. It was a different idea, different way in, and yeah, I liked it. So overall, I did enjoy it. The Mummy, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, is now in theaters. You can check it out at your local theater and watch it. I did enjoy it. It was a good theater experience, too. I did enjoy that part of it. And check it out for yourself. If you got... movie, what did you think about the Mummy? What did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let us know. Hit us up anytime on social media. Twitter/X, Instagram, Facebook. Just hit Rewind to Living Dead. Search Rewind to Living Dead. You'll find us over there. Hit us up on email anytime. rotlivingdead@gmail.com. 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 And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And as always, make sure you check us out on Patreon as well, patreon.com/RewindLivingDead. Never want to forget that plug as well. As always, I want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in the show. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Peace.